Welcome, writer. Welcome to the gift of memoir. Hey, if you're here, it's because you purchased this package or someone gave you this package as a gift. And my guess is the reason is that you're working on a book. So I'm really excited to have you here for these 3 videos. Let me introduce myself. My name is Cami Osman. I am the author of the memoir Second Wind, One Woman's Midlife Quest to Run 7 Marathons on 7 Continents. I am the editor of a couple of anthologies, and I run a program called Memory into Memoir, which is a 9-month supportive wraparound program giving writers everything they need to get their books done. So in this 3-part series, we're going to cover a few things, a few important things about the quest to write a book, in particular a memoir. I do want you to know that everything I talk about here is applicable to any kind of book that you're working on. But I'm going to specifically talk about the memoir in these videos because that is the group of writers that I'm supporting. So the first thing that we're going to talk about in this video is why it is that you might want to write your memoir and what stumps up writers and prevents them from moving forward in that. The second thing that we're going to talk about in the second video is what might you want to include in your story and what you might want to leave out. And then the third thing we're going to talk about in the third video is how do you get this darn thing done anyway? And I'm going to give you some really great tools to move you forward in your journey to write your memoir. So let's get started, shall we? I'm going to share my screen with you here. All right. Welcome to why write a memoir. Okay, and I'm going to see if I can get this. There we go. Technology never works the way you want it to. Great. So the first thing I want to do is really just say congratulations to you because taking this time commitment out for yourself, deciding that you're going to watch these videos, you're going to take the workbook that comes along with them, and you're going to do the exercises. It's a fairly big commitment, and it means that you're serious about writing your memoir. And it's my contention that right now is the time in history when you should be writing your memoir, and we're going to talk a little bit about why I believe that. First of all, words are power. Words are power, my friends. Right from the beginning of the New Testament, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. It is well recognized that words have power, and words are synonymous with power. I love this. It's from our Constitution, eh? Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Isn't that great and amazing? We really have the right in the country that I live in the United States. We have the right to speak. That isn't true everywhere in the world. But wherever it is true, I personally believe we ought to speak. And so often, much of our story over the years in any given person's life is silenced, right? And there are all kinds of reasons why we might be silenced. But now is the time, particularly in history and in your life, or you wouldn't be here watching this, when it's time to unleash your words and claim that freedom, the freedom to speak and to write. So I want to just talk a little bit about why is it important for you to write this book. You might even pause for a moment, put the video on pause and take a minute to journal a little bit about why it's important to write this book. And this is what we're going to cover in this particular video, and in the next one, when we talk about what is your project, I'll have you pause and do some exercises there as well. And then, of course, in the final video, when we talk about how you can sustain your commitment to complete your book, then we'll do some exercises there. But here I really want to start out with this question of why, because it's important. The question is, what do you want to accomplish out of writing this book? What are you hoping will come out of writing this book that you have in your heart to write? So just take a minute, turn off the video, and journal about this question. So let me tell you a little bit about some of the reasons that I hear writers want to write their books. All right. The first thing is, writers say they want to write because they have a personal commitment to do so. And this could include any number of things. It could be that they want to get something off their chest, or they want to get their story out in competition, perhaps with someone else's story, something like that. Maya Angelou has this great quote. She said that there is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you. And I think many of you probably know what this means, right? This is that energy that you have when you know you've got a book in you and you can't quite figure out how to birth it into the world. That agony weighs heavily, even for fiction writers. You know, I dabble in fiction myself, and I have to tell you that when a character has taken a hold of me, that character doesn't want to let me go. Even more so with my own story and what it is that I want to say about my own life. So the personal commitment to write your story, to give yourself a sense of relief, and to move the story from out of your body to the outside, to the rest of the world, on the page or in the computer. This is one really powerful reason that writers often speak to me about wanting to write their memoirs. Umberto Eco said that to survive, you must tell stories. And, you know, I really have to admit that for most of the writers I know, once they have established a writing habit, they feel like it's essential to their well-being, to their mental health, to their survival, and their humanity, their sense of authenticity. Each of us has a book waiting to be written, and that book, if written, results in a person explained. There is such a strong desire inside of each human to be understood and to be known for who he or she is. I want to be known in the same way that I know myself. I want you to know me as I believe I am. And when I write my story in a memoir, that may or may not happen. The reader may not understand what I meant to say, but I've given my very best effort at explaining who I am. And this is a really powerful motivation for a lot of writers to write their memoirs. So in addition to the personal reasons, there may be political reasons. And by political, I really only mean societal or community reasons for writing your memoir. Robin Williams, no matter what people tell you, words and ideas can change the world. And, you know, again, going back to the Christian scriptures or other scriptures, think about that canon of writing and the influence that it's had. Think about even the great novels, you know, that you read in high school and how much they've influenced how you think about your life. Words really do change the world. They bring things to life. They make meaning. Virginia Woolf, and I really love this quote, if you do not tell the truth about yourself, you cannot tell it about other people. You know, if you spend any amount of time on Facebook, you're going to notice that people are posting all kinds of political things on there, and then other people are giving their opinions, and there can be a little squabble going on, or lots of, you know, attaboys or whatever. And one of the things that always strikes me is how easy it is with social media in particular, and hiding behind an icon, how easy it is for us to speak what we think is true about other people. And Virginia Woolf here is pointing out that that may not be entirely fair until we tell the truth about the self. So, one thing I know about writing memoir and about supporting authors in writing their memoirs is that in every revision, the truth just goes deeper and deeper. You think you start out maybe writing a quest memoir about a long hike you took, and you find out that what you're really writing about is deep, deep grief. I'm thinking of Cheryl Strayed's book. And, each time we go a little deeper into what am I really trying to say, I think we earn the right to speak out our observations about others when we've really taken the trouble to observe and articulate what is true for the self. And dear Malala, the young woman who stood up in the bus and was shot in the face by the Taliban for refusing to stop going to school. She says, let us remember one book, one pen, one child, and one teacher can change the world. If you haven't read her memoir, I highly suggest it. Words really, really are powerful. When a government doesn't want its people to be able to participate in the discourse, they try to prevent the people in their country from reading. And, that's a big deal, to be prevented from learning to read or prevented from being able to get a hold of literature. That really does disempower people. So when we give the gift of a book, we empower those around us. And those of us who are literate, we have the opportunity, in a way that so many people around the world still don't have. Frederick Douglass, who isn't of our time, has this lovely quote that I think is so appropriate for our current political climate. At a time like this, scorching irony, not convincing argument, is needed. Here's the deal. We can all argue with each other, right? But if you can write a story that portrays the irony of a situation and it's personal, and someone knows there's a real human being behind that story when they read it, like in the case with the memoir, the power in that is life-changing. I have so often taken a memoir, read part of it, and had to set it down and cry because I knew that it was a true story. That rarely happens to me with a novel because I know that I'm living in a fictional world with a novel. That being said, there are novels that have such scorching irony. I think of 1984 and Brave New World in particular, because those are two books written from completely different perspectives about the same question or similar questions. So even with novels, really scorching irony, a story told with a bite can influence the way that humanity thinks. So, when we talk, you've heard this phrase, I'm sure, that the personal is political and the political is personal. And so, well, what does it mean? In the context of memoir, what I believe this means, my friends, is that your story is not disconnected in any way from the story of your neighbor or the person who votes differently than you, right? I mean, if I tell the story of a tragedy in my life or I tell the story of a victory in my life, it can just absolutely connect with people who are so different. When I wrote Second Wind, I have to say there were people who had never run a mile who said that they connected with my book. And in that book, while I was telling the story of one woman trying to run a marathon on every continent, I was also telling the story of how women can be strong and how we can push through the things that we're scared of. And that was a political statement. I really want women to feel empowered. So my personal story, I wanted it to connect with something that was much, much larger. I really believe that your story, yours, even if you think it's already been written, even if you think there are people who could write it better, your story is the tool you have to change the climate on our planet. It really, really is. And so that's what I mean when I say that the personal is political. You touch somebody's life and change their life, and they in turn will do the same and pass it on. It sounds simplistic to say that we're all connected, but it's absolutely a fact. We are all connected, and our stories are all connected. So I just want to talk a little bit about what is really unique to human storytelling. And I want you to feel into this and feel inspired about how you can participate in this thing that is so uniquely human. Irony in storytelling is actually something that only human beings do. We're the ones who tell a story tongue in cheek, who make it out as if there's one meaning, but really there's a twist in the meaning, right? You might feel that your dog is ironic. I sometimes think that about my dogs too. But human beings can do irony with language, and that is really pretty special. We're also the only species that narrates and re-narrates our experience. So you may or may not know, if you know me, you know this, that I'm also a marriage and family therapist. And for 20 years, I have been working with people who come in and tell me a story in therapy. And I listen and I give them feedback and I rephrase what they're saying and I try to give them a sense of being understood. They leave, they come back the next week, and they retell the story. Why do we do that? Because we're looking for meaning. We are absolutely trying to figure out how this piece fits with that piece, fits with this piece. And in writing, we have an amazing amount of control over this telling and retelling. In writing, we get to write what Anne Lamott calls the shitty first draft, where you just pour out on the page whatever is there for you. And then you go back in and you think, oh, what led up to that? And what's the flashback that goes with this? And oh, what's the takeaway for the reader? And oh, I can't see the room that I'm in when this scene happens. Let me really paint that picture, because without how poor we were, it doesn't make any sense. So let me show the room I'm in. So the ability to really re-narrate and make new meaning every time we tell the story, that's a totally human thing. Humans also use writing or words, but particularly words in writing, to still our busy minds. And, you know, for as far back as we have documentation, part of what's going on is in the writings that we have is the writer trying to bring peace, trying to bring understanding, so that there is a sense of, oh, things connect. Okay. So some of you who are watching this video, you will be people who've been journalers, like maybe your whole life. And what I want to say is that journaling and memoir writing are different. The initial journaling may still your mind, but bringing it into the form of a memoir will absolutely start to put pieces together, because you can slow it way down, that you can't bring together in the journaling. A lot of people, when they go to write their memoir, will dig out their journals and try to extract things from that that previous writing that they've done, and that's really hard to do. It's great to go through your journals and to read them as a way to inform what it is that you want to say, but it's really hard to go back and pull out pieces from journals and bring it into one form. So the revision process is like a continued meditation on that early writing, which is lovely. And I talked a little bit about this, the need to make meaning being distinctly human, that many animals, when they experience trauma, you know, like perhaps from a predator or something, when the trauma is over, they have this sort of shaking process that they do, and they're, all of the systems in their body return back to normal. That doesn't really happen with human beings. When we experience a trauma, we want to understand it and um, and give it some kind of meaning so that it doesn't just go to waste. And a lot of the writers that I hear who want to write their memoir, who talk to me about it, what they want to do is they don't want their suffering to go to waste. And that's a very big reason that people put forth the effort to write their memoir. We talked a little bit about this with Malala, but literacy is power. Some governments over the centuries have either put massive book taxes on their books so that it was almost impossible for people to afford to be able to read. And others have stopped kids from going to school, particularly young women, but children of both or all genders. So literacy and the ability to even put forth a coherent story and put it in writing is it's like a subversive act, really. We don't really think of it that way in North America because our literacy rates are pretty good. They're not as good as they should be, but they're pretty good. But that's not true in all places. And then one reason that a lot of authors or would-be authors say to me that they want to write is because they want to own their own story. So you may have had the experience where somebody in your life has a story about you. Oh, she's shy. Oh, she's always blankety blank, fill it in. And when you write your story, you take your power back. You own who you are. And I think this is particularly important for people who are a part of minority or oppressed groups, but certainly anyone who feels that their story has been ripped out of their hands and other people have ideas about them that feel oppressive or that are oppressive. A lot of people want to write to leave a legacy, and I hear sort of two versions of this with the authors that I work with. One is I want my kids, my grandchildren to know where I came from or, the story of my family. And then the other is I believe that my story can help someone. I believe that if they hear about how I got through cancer, then they will feel encouraged and they will have some information and some support to get through their cancer story, something like that. So that's a really big reason why people come to me and jump into the Memory into Memoir 9-month program, because a lot of my authors are getting to the point where they know if they don't write their story, it's going to lose the power that it has inside of them. Like they've been really thinking about it a long time and they don't want to forget what happened, and they don't want other people to forget what happened. So here I just want to pause and tell you a little story. Leah Lax is an author that I worked with. I helped her with one of the revisions of her book, Uncovered. And the thing about Leah is that when she was about 15 or 16, she joined a very, very conservative religious group. And in that religious group, her marriage was arranged, and she lived with her husband for many years. They had 7 children, and so much of her life was prescribed. How to eat, when to have sex, when not to have sex, what to wear, what to do with your hair. And all along, she tried very, very hard to live into and up to all of the rules that she'd been given. But she knew in her heart of hearts that she was a lesbian, and she knew in her heart of hearts that she wasn't living an authentic life. And the story of how she came to tell herself the truth, she did it through writing. She would get up in the middle of the night and pull out the paper when other people were not at home or not watching her, and she would write and write and write. And as she did, she was writing fiction really for the most part, but as she did, the truth, her authentic truth, started to take shape. She would hide these writings under the bed. And that process of engaging in meaning making, in irony, in taking the power back for the storytelling in her world, set her free. And Leah has this beautiful book. It's got a lovely cadence, and I recommend that you read it. It's one of my favorite memoirs. So let me tell you another story. This is my first anthology. It's called Beyond Belief, The Secret Lives of Women in Extreme Religions. And this is a story of how the personal and the community join together, the personal and the political. So I was taking a memoir class, and I met this lovely woman. She's my co-editor in this book, Susan Tive. And she came from a very conservative Jewish background, and I came from a very conservative evangelical Christian background. And I was still very much, at the time when we conceived of this book, still very much reeling from the fact that I had been told who I needed to be. And I needed and wanted to take my story back, which I did to a great degree in Second Wind. But as Susan and I were talking, we realized that even though we were from totally different faiths, we had a lot of things in common. A community of women, actually there are about 30 of us in the book, a community of women came together, straight and gay, women from different ethnic heritages, and we each told bits and pieces of our story, and we healed with each other. It was really a beautiful and amazing experience. So I think this is a really powerful experience, and I want you to have this experience. One of the best things about my program, Memory into Memoir, is that the writers get to know each other and each other's stories, and they start giving input, and the narratives really come alive for everyone. So what I really want to say here is just this encouragement. Your readers are waiting for you. Whose life will be changed when they read your words? You know, I'm sure that there is an audience that you want to reach, whether it's your children or your grandchildren or the people you went to school with. So if you will just stop and think for a second, who is your reader? Who is it that you want to reach? And this would be my second moment for you to just pause and ask yourself the question. Take a minute to write this down. So, dear writers, the why to write your memoir is that you have something to say. Now, I know there are a lot of things that you're worried about. There are a lot of things that stop you. And we're going to talk more about those things that stop writers in the video when we talk about how to get your writing done. We'll discuss how not to get your writing done, right? But here, I really want to address one thing that writers often say to me, why they don't write their stories. And it has to do with what other people will think. It's either other people will think that I'm stupid, because I'm not a good writer, or it's very specific. It's that if my brother sees this, he'll disown me. Here's what I want to say. Your readers are waiting for you, and your brother won't have a chance to disown you unless you write this story. So what I want you to do is I want you to take a picture of your brother, your mother, whoever it is that you're worried about seeing what you write, and put it on your writing table, just right there. Put it on your writing table. And then turn it around so that they're not watching you. That person isn't watching you while you're writing, okay? The first time through, my friends, no one's looking over your shoulder. The second time through, while you're revising, no one's looking over your shoulder. The third, fourth, fifth times through, no one's looking. Finally, when you give this material to an editor, someone will be looking, but then you still haven't published it yet, right? So when you're on the brink of publication, that's when I want you to ask the question, what will my brother, mother, father, friend think? But if you don't write this, your readers are never going to get to see it. So my dear writer, take out your journal, do the exercises I've given you. We're going to talk a little bit more in the next video about what it is that you're writing and how you can start to create a structure for yourself so that whenever you sit down at the table, you know exactly where to start and where to end, all right? So I'm going to stop my share screen and I'm going to wish you well. Go away with these questions to do a little bit of journaling, and we'll be back again for the next video soon.